Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. And here I thought the summer lull would continue into this week. But no, instead of the WRLD album bomb that didn't happen at all, we actually got two smaller album bombs this week, with neither big enough to qualify under my rules. Plus a bunch of other scattered songs, and none of it will likely matter anyway, because the way Donda by Kanye West is racking up the streaming and sales numbers, it's gonna bulldoze the charts next week, even just being placed outside the limited tracking window because he put it out on Sunday. Hell, the one place that seems mostly unaffected for now is the top 10, where Stay by Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber continues to squat at number 1. It's worth noting that thanks to sales being up, streaming being rock solid, and an absolute radio tear, I don't see what breaks this in the near future, even with that album bomb coming. Now, Bad Habits by Ed Sheeran, it's trying to make a run at number 2. It still has radio momentum, better sales, and streaming is actually up, but it just can't make up anything close to that margin. And Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo seems out of contention at number 3. Streaming might be stable and it rules the radio, but I absolutely feel like this is peaked. Now, the surprise for me came with Kiss Me More by Doja Cat featuring SZA up to number 4, but I put that more up to Lizzo and Cardi B falling out of the top 10, because even as the streaming is stable, radio's starting to decline. Now, this might open a way for Industry Baby by Lil Nas X and Jack Harlow to make a run beyond number 5, given that the streaming is strong and radio seems to have finally gotten its shit together. But again, it's got a real hill to climb here, especially given all the weeks ahead. Now, this strands Levitating by Dua Lipa at number 6, propped up on a decent sales and streaming week, even as the radio continues to stumble, and actually sees Butter by BTS up at number 7, mostly thanks to a slightly resurgent sales margin as the radio just tanks. Now, the last 3 here are all pretty much picking up gains because the fallback of rumors. Deja Vu by Olivia Rodrigo up to number 8 thanks to radio that's slowly slipping away. Montero, Call Me By Your Name by Lil Nas X at number 9 with slightly better streaming but sharper radio losses. And Save Your Tears by The Weeknd and Ariana Grande at number 10, which is clinging to okay streaming and a far slower than expected radio falloff. I thought this would be gone by now. But on that charming note are losers and dropouts, which in the latter group is just chock full of acts that just not enough here to get on the year-end list placement for 2021. The most borderline probably being Blame It On You by Jason Aldean and My Life by J. Cole, 21 Savage, and Murray. Although I'd also throw Straightenin' by Migos in there, with Favorite Crime by Olivia Rodrigo, Hats Off by Lil Baby, Lil Durk, and Travis Scott, and Ball If I Want To by DaBaby. Now, trust me when I say there's more of these mid-range losers coming with the album bomb ahead, and for this week, those losers mostly pepper the low end of the Hot 100. Yes, off the debut, Rumors by Lizzo and Cardi B fell to 17, as did Paralyzed by Suko at 87, but then we got our continued losers like Vulvi by Aventura and Bad Bunny at 55, or Permission to Dance by BTS at 97. Then we got our slew of country losers, Glad You Exist by Dan and Shay at 36 off its album boost, You Should Probably Leave by Chris Stapleton at 76, My Boy by Elvis Shane at 81, and You Time by Scotty McCreery at 85. But as for the rest, well, Rap Star by Polo G's making its graceful exit at 40, Motley Crue by Post Malone just continues to tank at 64, You by Regard, Troye Sivan, and Tate McRae slid to 82, Come Through by Her and Chris Brown hit 83, and AM by Neo Garcia, J Balvin, and Bad Bunny's at 98. Expect there to be a lot more losers in the next 2 weeks though, just watch. And thus, as expected, not really much came back into this when we look at our returns and gains. Yes, Brutal by Olivia Rodrigo is back to 89 thanks to the video, but it's not going to hold up against the album bombs ahead. And speaking of which, Trippie Red saw both Holy Smokes with Lil Uzi Vert and Miss the Rage with Playboi Carti back at 78 and 79 respectively. And we only saw 2 gains this week. Chasing After You by Ryan Hurd and Maren Morris remains a slow burn on streaming and the radio at 34, but what surprised me was Beggin' by Mainskin up to 29, mostly thanks to a radio and sales push that actually seems to be working? I don't know, I'll believe this will actually last when I see it long term, aka after the next 2 weeks. But of course, that means the big story here is our 16 new arrivals, none of which qualify for exclusion under my album bomb rules, so we might as well get started with number 99, Time Heals by Rod Wave.
Don't need love, I need time. Young, wild, and mad, broken hearted.
So I'll freely admit that, given I don't cover the vast majority of deluxe reissues, I had no clue that Rod Wave had more songs here, and honestly, I kind of wish he didn't. Don't get me wrong, I really like Soulfly, but I wasn't expecting much of a change up in the sound, and just getting more of the same didn't really enthuse me, and even though I still mostly like this, I get the feeling that it still should be better. I will say the blend of liquid keys and guitars that have a bit of an early 90s timbre to them against the trap groove, they feel a little bit better produced than usual, but Rod Wave is back in his lane of grinding, but all the girls and the haters are trying to take advantage of his good nature. And honestly, at this point, he just needs to add a little more detail to keep this interesting, bring in some complexity. I also don't think his gruffness is the best delivery here to go, so at least the production's better. Shame about the rest of this. Number 96, Tik Tok by Young Thug.
When I bow down on my bitch, she come with a big rock. Big rock. Do you wanna know how it is? What? When you a big dog, yeah, you might got to take the assist. Let your dog get the big shot.
So I find it really funny that Genius is referring to this song as Young Thug's lead-off single for his sophomore album, as if he hasn't been churning out so many damn projects across the 2010s that are albums in any other name. Regardless, here's the song, and okay, I hear the potential, but this is one of those tracks that for everything that's good here, there's plenty that doesn't work. Yes, Young Thug sounds focused for once, on a Lil Wayne vibe. His bars are pretty sharp, and he spends most of the song in his upper register without much of his old flair. Yeah, the lead synth melody is catchy, and the percussion feels weirdly blown out and chalky, once again showing Dr. Luke's continued struggles in this brand of trap as a producer. And I'm not really impressed by the content here either. Beyond the title that's obviously courting virality, and all the brand name porn, we got Young Thug comparing 4 black women to a Kit Kat and saying that he doesn't flush the toilet after he has a shit. So no, this might have potential, but I can't say I'm going back. Next, number 94, Demon Time by Trippie Red featuring Ski Mask the Slump God.
Only like a kickstand. I get money, big bands. We ain't playing big grands and up. What you saying? Man, what you saying?
Oh good lord, if this is gonna be the brand of the blaring late 2000s synths making a comeback, we could be in for a rough couple of years, especially given how sloppily mixed the percussion is. I mean, I get why it's coming back, thanks Nostalgia Cycle and the rage being all the new thing, but you'd think we could have learned what worked from the era and have something of a coherent groove, not just Trippie Red hollering in old SoundCloud rap fashion about shooting people, doing drugs, and flexing. I mean, thank God Ski Mask is here to effectively step in with a wild enough personality to fit this production and the manic vibe with all his anime references and his careening flow. I mean, no jokes, he saves the song from being ungodly annoying, and yet he still can't make it precisely good. So, I just hate to say that. Number 93, What's Wrong by Rod Wave.
Tell me why you acting so tough. Tell me why you so scared to show love. Tell me the scars on my heart, this ain't no bluff. In the city on the side where I growed up, young niggas cutthroat, getting no fuck. I know I said what I said, but so what? You know that I ain't mean it.
Okay, a little better. More of a pattering slow burn with the watery guitars and the more restrained trap groove that actually fits Rod Wave's downbeat delivery as he flips into a faster flow to describe the poverty of his come-up, and that doesn't match the phony happiness of everyone else around him that doesn't match the heartbreak he still feels. Now again, all still very standard for Rod Wave, especially by the time he opens up to belt for the hook, and the song does feel a little more like a fragment than an actual full piece, but you know what, it's not bad. I like this brand of Rod Wave. Don't mind this at all. Number 92, Danny Phantom by Trippie Red featuring XXXTENTATION.
Bitch, I'm going ghost. Bitch, I'm going ghost. Bitch, I'm going ghost. Bitch, I'm going ghost.
Can we not be done with this? Look, I get that Trippie Red had a rather fraught relationship with XXXTENTATION and has paid tribute on posthumous songs multiple times since, but it's been over 3 years. This is a remix of a song from 2018 that at one point had Quavo and Ski Mask on it, and it's starting to feel kinda gross, especially because of all the overmixed synths, the messy percussion, the influx of chipmunk ad-libs, and the fact this is a glorified fragment makes me wonder if it was all really worth it. Yes, the other ghost on the song, it's X, but the posthumous verse contributed sounds really undercooked, and has lines like, just like the Knicks, play with my balls, and then calling other rappers irrelevant. Look, I didn't like X in the best of times, but at this point, this seems to sully his legacy. It makes my skin crawl to see shit like this. So it's not good. Next. Number 91, Get Ready by Rod Wave featuring Kodak Black.
My dream this on my desk back in middle school.
And speaking of features I didn't need, this was the other reason I wasn't hunting for a deluxe reissue of Soulfly, because we'd get stuff like this. Now I should start to say that I'm not really wild about the bassy production either. The trap percussion is trying to pull in some soulful swell, but the melody's completely drowned out until the hook, and Rod Wave's come-up story once again feels a little bit sour with his gratitude juxtaposed with an obvious shot at Murray, which really doesn't feel needed given how Murray hasn't been able to really launch himself off of street sermons. Rod Wave, why are you so insecure about this? It could be that his album is better? But then there's Kodak Black. And I'll be fair here, I don't hate his verse. I think it feels composed, sober, kind of honest about the fact that his wave seems to have peaked, and he's not really commanding the same level of attention anymore, especially given that his legal struggles have kept him out of the limelight. The problem is that by ending his verse referencing that case, I'm reminded of those sexual assault charges, and I'm wondering why Rod Wave and his camp thought it was a good idea to bring Kodak Black on board here. It's just a bad look given that Kodak's career is floundering at best right now. He put out an album in November of 2020 that had a Tory Lanez feature of all things, where I don't remember seeing any hype for that album. It wasn't reviewed well either, and I am just left disappointed. I mean, this could have been better. Number 90, I Guess I'm in Love by Clinton Kane.
My heart break, but I know now I've found the one I love.
Okay, I remember this guy. He had that Chicken Tendies song from earlier in the year that had more depth and thought than I think anyone could have expected, and I kind of wished he had stuck around. Well, now he's got a second song, and sadly it's not quite as interesting, but it's hard for me to dislike. The pianos and low strings playing to his husky delivery decently well, and you can tell he is genuinely into this girl. And I appreciate how he flips the whole what makes you beautiful angle back on himself. She likes the stuff about himself that he doesn't. He overthinks and he might implode, but she can provide some of that support for him, and he's happy to fill in when she might be a little bit indecisive in return. They kind of feel like they're made for each other. I don't know, the sense of honest intimacy is doing a lot of legwork to fill in an otherwise pretty basic love song, but I can say it's alright. Nice stuff. Number 86, MP5 by Trippie Redd featuring SoFayGo.
Had to spread my wings and teach them all how to fly. Yeah, your niggas square, divided by pi.
Alright, let's put aside the fact that the weedy, glitchy synths and the trap beat are a disaster of bad mixing with limited groove, where I have to think this sort of rage production might need to grow on me like hyperpop kinda did. I kinda doubt it. Or that Trippie Redd is yowling about his normal guns and cars, and there's a bunch of 2000s kids sitcom references. Or that SoFayGo just sounds bowled over by this instrumentation and is trying to rely on his overlong ad-libs when he's not openly ripping off Lil Uzi Vert. No. The line that immediately kind of broke my brain was Trippie Redd calling his haters square and then to divide them by pi. Okay, the only way this is in the same ballpark as sense is that pi times the radius squared is the area of a circle, and given that he's talking about something rolling in the next line, but that doesn't even make sense, because if they're the square, to get on his level, they should be multiplied by pi, not divided. And why am I wasting time with this when the easier explanation is that Trippie Redd probably doesn't understand basic friggin' geometry? Alright, look, the song's got an okay hook. The howlingly annoying production will ruin it, and the content does not help, but it's that line. That's what annoys me the most. Next. Number 75, Visiting Hours by Ed Sheeran.
Another day, so much has changed since you've been away.
So I'll admit I had no idea what to expect for Ed Sheeran's next single, mostly because Bad Habits felt as hollow and devoid of what makes him interesting to be the obvious label cash-in. So with that in mind, and with the album formally announced, I was curious more than setting expectations, and this might be the third funeral song that Ed Sheeran has just knocked out of the goddamn park. A Fire Love remains, in my opinion, his best song from back in 2014. He followed it with Supermarket Flowers in 2017, and now this is dedicated to a dear friend and an acclaimed music promoter in Australia, where this song actually debuted at his state funeral. And what I find so striking is that guitar tone that opens up the song. It almost sounds a little like a pedal steel, which gives this a borderline country folk tone, especially given how the piano matches with the acoustic guitar. And even if Ed Sheeran's falsetto on the hook, not really my thing, when the heavier choral vocals and even some of the auto-tune slips in for the punctuation in the second hook and then it's followed by the horns, yeah, it got me. What strikes me is that a song like this plays to Ed Sheeran's strengths. He's heartfelt and earnest. He can sell Wondering If Heaven Has Visiting Hours. The sort of person who will remember the smallest of details like a favorite wine, which adds to a lot of the texture you need to make these lyrics actually work, where there might be some bombast, but he still lets the loneliness really sit for the final moments. Or in other words, yeah, I'm legit shocked how hard this hit for me, as this might be Ed Sheeran's best song since Castle on the Hill, maybe since earlier. It's also the second time that Asylum and Atlantic bungled the lead-off single rollout for the song that was second and was way better. Thankfully, still time to fix this. Please, let's make this a thing. Number 73, One Mississippi by Kane Brown.
Are you on your way? We're tipsy, baby, come kiss me. I can't wait, I can't wait.
You know, I've talked about Kane Brown going back to country, whereas in truth he's always been on the poppy-ist side of things. I'd frankly be more interested in seeing him take on a more neo-traditional tone. I think he's got the voice for it. And here, even with the obviously programmed percussion clashing with the live drums, I think it's a step in the right direction, especially with that prominent fiddle against the massively over-polished whooshing effects all over the damn hook. Dan Huff has a habit of doing this, and he never seems to quite get called on it as much as he probably should, but you know, I do like the rollicking groove on a pretty solid hook for this sort of breezy drinking song, which kind of works with a lot of the content where it's all about these two people always meeting at the bar and then bouncing off each other, sometimes going home together, sometimes going their separate ways. It's very loose and playful, and I like how the song plays into that, and Kane Brown's got enough charisma to make it work. So yeah, you know what, for this brand of pop country, I'm on board. This is a good song. Number 69, Don't Go by Skrillex, Justin Bieber, and Don Toliver.
See, I'm pulling at you that way. Ooh, if this is where you're supposed to be.
I would have just been fine with Don Toliver and Skrillex, but seriously, the only reason this charted was because of Bieber, who with the fluttery, overdeveloped trap groove against the acoustic guitar, which reminds me way too much of Pharrell, especially with that whistle, it seems to be trying to make a Justin Timberlake song from the 2000s, and Bieber seemed credible until he had that god-awful COVID line on the second verse when he tries to rap, and it just kills the atmosphere in one fell swoop. Now, thankfully, Don Toliver restores some of the feeling, and he and Justin Bieber actually have decent chemistry flowing into the bridge, but this is a song that's trying to ride on JB being JT for 2/3 of the song, and I'm not remotely convinced that Bieber can pull it off. Now, given 2000s nostalgia, I'd actually put money on this being a hit if it survives the album bombs, but otherwise, you know, I think my original point stands. But while we're in album bomb territory, number 67, Betrayal by Trippie Redd featuring Drake. Is it fair for me to say that all this chaos with the Donda release is partially Drake's fault, prompted by this stupid feud and egged on by this verse, which is probably giving Trippie Redd's project a lot more attention than it deserved? Apparently Drake was added last minute to this over-caffeinated blur of bass, trap percussion, and fizzy synths, and man, you can tell his flow is blocky and half-formed, and his passing shots at Kanye, they don't even match the vibe of the song, which is supposed to be more exuberant and wild and fun. At least Trippie Redd kinda got that with all his flexing. Hell, it's probably the first time I've actually kinda liked this form of rage production because the groove is mostly solid and the melody on the hook complements it. It's just let down by Drake bringing all his bullshit into it again. So, yeah, I was almost on board. almost. Number 60, Already Won by Rod Wave featuring Lil Durk.
Come today. You know, often I get so lost in my thoughts, just thinking about losses. And I remember where I come from, already won.
So my general rule with Rod Wave is that I don't tend to expect much from him and guest stars, especially those with whom he should work well, like Polo G and Lil Durk, and he just doesn't. But man, you know what? With the piano supporting that 90s R&B twinkle, it nearly had me at the beginning until the bass swamps out the entire mix and Rod Wave is stuck trying to cut through it. And it's very telling that Lil Durk's vocal clarity is actually able to rise above it. Somebody screwed up in the mixing. It's kind of a shame because I actually really like the sentiment. Both these guys are tempted to get lost in their own thoughts of misery, but when they reflect on where they came from, they've really already won by finding this level of success. They shouldn't let it overpower them in their art. It's a good message. I mean, it's a shame the bass mixing cripples the execution, but hey, you know what? I appreciate the effort. Number 56, Rich MF by Trippie Red featuring Lil Durk and Polo G.
Get a motherfucker, only roll with shooters, rhyme with the scammers, fucking on the teller.
And speaking of this collab duo, I mean, come on, if they're on so much this year, if Trippie Red didn't get them, that'd be the surprise. It's also one of the cases where I can actually kind of get behind the production. The creeping piano line balancing off the heavier trap rumble, it keeps it a little simpler and focused and actually gives Trippie Red some groove to support his gunplay, his brand name porn, and all of his fucking. So great, we're back to the standards for him with content, and like with most material aiming for pure violence, Polo G sounds like he's itching to throw in a little bit more depth and complexity, and his verse feels weirdly empty without that, which gives us Lil Durk, who actually nails the menace better than everyone else here. Look, I don't know, for Trippie Red, this kind of feels like a concession to his guest stars, and I'm not sure it does enough to really make this stand out from the crowd beyond just being a decent enough trap song. The rage beats, they might be ear-splitting and annoying, but they do have a little more personality that kind of fits him. Unfortunately, the case in point, number 49, Matt Hardy 999 by Trippie Red featuring Juice WRLD.
About to spend $100,000 a day. Lot of blue face, honey, it's a blueberry parade.
So if you're now counting, that's 2 posthumous artists that Trippie Red got to chart this week. I was gonna say 2 verses, but this is a song apparently that Trippie Red's been working on with the late Juice WRLD since late 2018. Now with the new blaring synth line and badly mixed percussion before he drops into an organ and gooey synth from out of nowhere. It doesn't fit at all. And to be blunt, this is the version of Juice WRLD that I never liked. The braggadocious side that talked about hanging people like the KKK, and girls giving him titty, and pissing on women like R. Kelly, and then referencing iCarly as he talks about all these women being fake and plastic, as if that's an appropriate reference. Now I could highlight, that tends to be the type that these guys tend to go for, and when Trippie Red has a verse where he talks about girls giving his dick a licky while he pisses and shits, I have to even wonder if he's getting them. But when we get to the beat switch at the end that's trying to feel melancholic, it just feels really off. The sort of attempt at tribute for Juice WRLD that doesn't fit. Is this what he honestly wants to be remembered for? But you know what, even if it all feels like a shot of dopamine into the skulls of teenage white boys, even as someone who once was one, I can't remotely endorse this. It's trash, and not even in the fun way. And finally, number 48, Summer of Love by Shawn Mendes and Taney.
And for a couple of months, it felt like we were 18. It was the summer of...
I mean, I guess I'm not that surprised he's not pushing any more singles from Wonder. I'm frankly stunned he managed to nab the collab to get this to break at all, given the worst possible timing with the chart chaos that's coming. And you know what, with that, is the song okay? I mean, the fizzy knock that Taney gives Shawn Mendes is alright, but the very minimal melody that picks into that really ugly pluck is not a flattering look. And Shawn Mendes is not exactly the most enticing performer to get me to care once again about his relationship with Camila Cabello, especially when he's got lines like, "I've been taking mental pictures for when I miss you in the winter." Is she gonna go somewhere that we don't know about? Or do you think being involved in what looks like to be a god-awful Cinderella movie will force her to go into hiding? But in truth, this is just really damn forgettable. It's once again riding on our interest in this couple that I really don't have, and the lightning of Senorita does not seem to be catching twice. So yeah, Not interested. Let's move on. But that actually ends a really long week. Oh my god, what a mess here. But we do have two definite standouts, with Visiting Hours by Ed Sheeran easily taking the best of the week, with One Mississippi by Kane Brown as the honorable mention. I'll say it, the good hook just edged out Clinton Kane here. But for the worst of the week, oh fuck this. It's a trippy red tie with Matt Hardy 999 with the late Juice WRLD and Danny Phantom with the late XXXTENTATION. Followed by the dishonorable mention MP5 with SoFayGo. But next week, yeah, we're gonna have to deal with Kanye West. A lot of it. Stay tuned for that, but until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.